In this podcast episode, Hasan Piker, a Turkish-American political commentator, shares his journey from studying political science and communication at the University of Miami and Rutgers to becoming a full-time Twitch streamer. He started his career at the Young Turks, where he built their advertisement sales and operations before transitioning to creating his own content on Twitch. Piker discusses his initial idolization of the American dream, which for him was centered around going to college in America. However, he acknowledges that the American dream is becoming increasingly unattainable for many due to growing wealth disparity. He highlights the issue of upward social mobility becoming more limited, with the wealthiest individuals accumulating more wealth while the rest of the population struggles to see financial growth. When discussing taxation, Piker emphasizes the need for a fair tax system that addresses wealth inequality. He suggests that the current tax structure in America disproportionately taxes individuals based on income rather than wealth. He advocates for reforming wealth taxes and increasing the highest tax rate to ensure a more equitable distribution of resources. He acknowledges that high tax rates may disincentivize individuals from working harder, especially when tax rates exceed 50%. Piker criticizes the lack of visible returns on government spending in the United States. He points out that despite high taxes, many Americans do not see tangible benefits in terms of infrastructure, public services, or quality of life. He compares the American tax structure to that of European countries, where higher taxes often result in better public amenities and services. He highlights the need for more transparent and efficient government spending to address the disconnect between taxes paid and services received. While discussing the challenges in the American tax system, Piker mentions the issue of subsidies and defense spending consuming a significant portion of the budget. He also criticizes the lack of accountability in government spending, with funds often allocated to projects that do not directly benefit the average citizen. Piker emphasizes the importance of redirecting tax revenue towards initiatives that improve public infrastructure, healthcare, and overall quality of life for all citizens. The conversation shifts to the topic of capitalism, with Piker expressing his belief that capitalism has outlived its usefulness in the modern age. He advocates for a shift towards policies that prioritize affordable housing as a human right and give more autonomy to workers in all workplaces. He also discusses the differences in beliefs about human nature between conservatives and liberals, noting that both sides have varying perspectives on whether humans are inherently good or bad. When asked about his views on political commentators on the right, Piker acknowledges that there are individuals who are good faith in their beliefs, but he strongly disagrees with their policies and ideologies. He mentions Ben Shapiro as an example of someone who is good faith but holds opinions that he finds morally objectionable, particularly regarding issues like Israel-Palestine and social liberties. Piker reflects on his recent debate with Piers Morgan, noting that debates are often more about showmanship and rhetoric than actual intellectual discourse. He mentions other debates he has participated in, including with Larry Elder and Ann Coulter, highlighting the importance of skilled oration in debates. The conversation touches on the perceived failures of democratically-run states compared to conservative states. Piker mentions the challenges faced by businesses in states like California, particularly in cities like San Francisco, where companies are reportedly leaving due to issues like retail shrinkage. He clarifies that the shrinkage is not necessarily due to organized retail theft, but rather a normal fluctuation in the retail industry. Piker highlights the fact that some companies use theft as a scapegoat for closing locations when the real issue is the high cost of real estate and the inability to compete with e-commerce giants like Amazon. He mentions that companies often use theft as a political message to mask the true reasons for shutting down locations. He also notes the prevalence of theft in cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, attributing it to a lack of penalties for criminal behavior and the high cost of living in urban areas. The conversation shifts to the topic of crime and punishment, with Piker expressing his belief that stricter measures and harsher punishments do not effectively deter criminal behavior. He points out that the United States has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, yet crime rates continue to persist. He argues that the root causes of crime, such as lack of opportunity, access, and education, need to be addressed rather than relying solely on punitive measures. Piker draws a comparison between the societal dynamics in the United States and Japan, noting the differences in crime rates, homelessness, and overall safety. He highlights Japan's collectivist culture, strict enforcement policies, and emphasis on community well-being as factors contributing to a safer and more harmonious society. He also mentions Japan's efforts to incentivize people to move back to rural areas to alleviate urban overcrowding. The conversation touches on the correlation between political ideologies and happiness, with Piker referencing studies that suggest liberals tend to be more unhappy than conservatives. He attributes this disparity to the fear-based nature of conservative beliefs and the sense of self-protection that drives their policies. He also discusses the shift of certain public figures like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk towards more conservative viewpoints, speculating that factors like social permission and radicalization may play a role in their ideological shifts. Piker delves into the importance of diversity in educational environments and the benefits of having a mix of backgrounds and experiences. He acknowledges the role of affirmative action in promoting diversity, but emphasizes that it is a temporary solution to deeper systemic issues. He discusses the historical context of racial discrimination in the United States, particularly in relation to Black communities, and the lasting impact of segregation and institutional bias on opportunities for minorities. Piker acknowledges the challenges of balancing merit-based selection with the benefits of diverse representation, highlighting the need for a nuanced approach that considers various factors beyond just academic achievement. Piker addresses the issue of reparations for historical injustices, particularly in the context of racial discrimination and systemic inequality. He argues that the United States has failed to adequately address the legacy of slavery and segregation, leading to ongoing disparities in opportunities and outcomes for marginalized communities. He advocates for a comprehensive approach to addressing racial inequality that goes beyond superficial measures like affirmative action and delves into the root causes of societal inequities. Piker shares his views on the castle doctrine, a legal concept that allows individuals to use force, including deadly force, to defend their homes against intruders. He criticizes the expansive nature of the doctrine, which can lead to misuse and unintended consequences. He questions the necessity of such laws in a society where other countries do not have similar provisions. He argues for more restrictive measures to prevent abuse of the castle doctrine and promote nonviolent solutions to security concerns. Throughout the discussion, Piker advocates for social safety nets and public resources to address societal issues. He believes that providing basic income, job opportunities, and access to essential services can improve overall well-being and reduce crime. He contrasts the American approach to social welfare with that of other countries, highlighting the need for a shift in mindset towards collective well-being and support for marginalized communities. Piker critiques current policies that prioritize individualism and wealth accumulation over social welfare. He points out the mismanagement of funds and resources, particularly in areas like housing and healthcare. He argues that the focus should be on addressing root causes of social problems rather than relying on punitive measures or deterrence tactics. He calls for a reevaluation of priorities and a more compassionate approach to governance. The conversation shifts to the topic of squatters, with Piker expressing support for individuals who occupy vacant properties. He argues that squatters can repurpose unused buildings for shelter, especially in the case of homelessness. He acknowledges the legal complexities of squatting, but emphasizes the importance of providing housing for those in need. He criticizes the focus on property ownership as an investment vehicle and advocates for public housing as a solution to homelessness. Piker also talks about the initiative to revitalize old vacant hotels and turn them into homeless shelters. He acknowledges that while this is a temporary solution, homeless shelters can be violent and hostile environments for those seeking refuge. He criticizes the mismanagement and corporate interests that hinder initiatives to provide permanent housing solutions for the homeless. He emphasizes the importance of housing-first policies that prioritize privacy and dignity for individuals experiencing homelessness. Piker shares his thoughts on the performance of Alejandro Mayorkas as the Director of Homeland Security. He highlights the failures of both Democrats and Republicans in effectively processing migrants and providing them with legal status and work opportunities. He criticizes the politicization of immigration issues and the exploitation of undocumented labor by businesses. The conversation shifts to unpaid internships, with Piker expressing his belief that individuals should be paid for their work, even if they are in a learning or training position. He discusses the concept of unpaid internships and challenges the idea that individuals should work for free in exchange for experience. He acknowledges that he and others have done unpaid work in the past, but emphasizes the importance of fair compensation for labor. Piker addresses the label of being a champagne socialist, explaining that socialism is not about forcing everyone to be poor or equal. He clarifies that socialism is about advocating for equity, worker rights, and fair distribution of resources. He reflects on the misconception that socialism requires individuals to live in poverty and challenges the notion that his lifestyle contradicts his socialist beliefs. The conversation delves into Piker's financial decisions and lack of investments. He explains that he prioritizes ethical spending, such as purchasing union-made merchandise, over investing in stocks or other financial instruments. He discusses his reluctance to invest in traditional avenues and his preference for spending on family, friends, and charitable causes. He acknowledges that his financial decisions may not align with conventional wisdom, but are in line with his values and priorities. Piker discusses his approach to retirement planning, acknowledging that he may not have accumulated enough savings or investments to maintain his current lifestyle in retirement. He mentions having a SEP IRA, but expresses doubts about its adequacy for retirement. He reflects on the lack of pension structures in his field and the challenges of planning for retirement without traditional financial instruments.